I'm Carol Klein, and this is my home, Glebe Cottage. When I'm not presenting or writing about gardening, this is where I spend most of my time, and where I've been honing my horticultural skills for 40 years. Whether you've got a spacious plot, a tiny patio, or a few window boxes, there's nothing more exciting and satisfying than creating your own garden. From basic to more advanced techniques, I believe anyone can learn how to do it. Whether you're a complete novice or an experienced gardener, I want to help you develop the skills to make your garden grow. I'm ready. Are you? Hello and welcome back to my garden here at Glebe Cottage. You can almost hear everything growing. Just a few weeks ago it was an entirely different picture. You could see loads of bare earth and just a few green things beginning to sprout up here and there. I was cutting back the old growth from the Hackernacloa, the grass that delineates these four corners of the path. Now you can hardly see the earth, but the thing that really makes the difference are these big splashes of colour, and most of that colour is provided by bulbs. The bulb that's in complete control here is this Camassia. These electric blue flowers on tall stems. One sign of how much it loves living here is its longevity. I planted some of these bulbs, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And each year these clumps get bigger and bigger. The other bulb that shares the billing with the Camassias at the moment are the tulips. Unlike Camassias, which love heavy, damp soil, they prefer it dry, poor, stony. I can't grow them in the ground here. They just don't last any time at all. So I grow them all in pots. They're so diverse, I mean, almost every colour under the sun. And their forms, sometimes classic chalice-shaped flowers, at other times really frilly and gorgeous. You can use them in so many different ways. I went over the top with one pot down here, and I've planted it with lots and lots of a dainty little lady tulip. It's called Clusiana cynthia, and it's pale, peachy, pinky yellow, and then yellow on the inside. And it's glorious. I can see it luring me into the other parts of the garden. Everything's beginning to merge and look part of the whole picture. To ensure our gardens give us these special moments throughout the year, we always have to be on our toes and plan ahead. Spring's really moving on already. The petals from this gorgeous magnolia are starting to fall to the ground like pink and white confetti. And the daffodils and Camassias will soon be fading, and I've got to start thinking about what's going to take over from them. What bulbs can I grow in the summer to just prolong the show and carry it forward? I think the bulb that's really going to hit that summer spot has to be the lily. And of all the lilies I could choose, and there are hundreds and hundreds of them, this is probably my favourite. It doesn't look all that prepossessing at the moment, but it will. It's Lilium regale. It came from the Himalayan mountains. It has big white trumpety flowers touched with crimson on the back of the petals, and gorgeous golden stamens, and above all, it's got the most beautiful scent. I've earmarked a special spot for them beyond the magnolia tree. It's a really good idea to get rid of perennial weeds, also to remove some of this mossy stuff that's on the top that doesn't really help the soil to breathe. But I'll add a bit of leaf mould, because the bulbs that I'm going to plant Lilium regale really loves some organic matter in there. Nothing too strong, just something to improve the texture and to go on feeding on. Most lilies like their heads in the sun, but Lilium regale will stand a bit of partial shade, and I think this is the perfect spot. And I want to plant them about 5 or 6 inches deep. So to the bottom of my spade, I'm going to plant them individually, and I'm going to space them just a few inches apart, and then into that hole I'm going to incorporate grit. It's wonderful stuff because it means that when those roots start to go down, there's no chance of them rotting here at all. It just helps drainage. So when I plant this, I don't want to wrap those roots up at all. So I'm going to dibble them right down into the bottom of the hole. Hold it sort of suspended. Ooh, you can almost hear it saying, this is really the ideal spot for me. I'm so happy. As long as a few of my friends can join me. You want a whole group of them. But I must remember where it is, otherwise I might plant another one too close. I think I'll see that little stick. X marks the spot. It should come up year after year after year, standing proud with big white trumpety flowers. Well, fingers crossed, because the nemesis of all lilies is at large in the garden. I am just about to catch this lily beetle. They're a thumpy nuisance. They've not been common for very, very long, but they're in my garden now, and that means that anything that belongs to the lily family, they move in on. And you can already see on some of these leaves there are little nibbles. And if I leave them on there, in no time at all, they'll decimate these beautiful bulbs. These are martagon lilies, and I intend to see them flower. He's gone. He'll see you. You're so-and-so. With my summer lilies thoroughly debugged, I'm turning my attention to a later flowering beauty. There are 2 times of year when you can plant lilies. One's in the autumn and the other one is in the spring. Plant them straight away and you'll have flowers in the summer, apart from the lily I'm going to plant now. This flowers in the autumn. It's called Lilium speciosum. It's got a lovely shape with reflex petals, and its throat is sort of dark crimson and spotted, and it's pink and beautiful, and the perfume's just divine. And it's special to me for more than one reason, because when we got married, I didn't have a bouquet or anything, and I was driving past some houses and saw these beautiful speciosum lilies in somebody's front garden. I was dead cheeky. I went and knocked on the door, and I asked him if I might buy them, and he gave them to me. I know you're just trying to help, but I think you better get down, that's it, and let me get on with this. So they're not particularly huge, but they're nice and solid, really robust, ready to go, and those roots are in good condition too. So after I've put the crocks in, I fill them halfway up with really good compost. It's got a bit of multi-purpose, a lot of sterilised loam, and loads of extra grit too. So I'm going to lower them down, just 3 at a time, but you want to make sure that you've removed any old root there, and then in it goes. But they're about sort of 4 inches or so down here. You just want to nestle them in really, roots right down, bulb resting on the top. Fill your pots right up to the top, finishing off naturally with a layer of grit. Now, with a bit of luck, these ought to flower for our wedding anniversary in September. But right now, I'm just going to enjoy the sunshine. Next, the more you delve, the more you find. I'm embarking on a spring propagation frenzy. Every so often, it's just worthwhile to listen to the pigeons and to take in all that's around you. Just a couple of weeks ago, this was in tight bud. It's Hexacorda macrantha, the bride. Very aptly named, I think. And then with this spring sunshine, it's just opened up. And now there's more white than green in it. It's just gorgeous. They don't look like it now, but last autumn, these were the stars of the show. Gladiolus murieli, with these broad white flowers, each one with a purple stain in the centre, were the most elegant thing around. A whole row of them we had down in my youngest daughter Alice's garden. I used them for her wedding, and I'm going to use them again. And it's bulbs and other kinds of storage organs that provide the energy to grow some of our most treasured flowers again and again. Could do with some oil on that. When you look around your garden, there are loads and loads of plants that have developed really specialist sort of mechanisms to cope with very extreme conditions, things like very, very cold winters, boiling hot summers. Some of them are bulbs, tulips, narcissi, hyacinth. Some of them are rhizomes, irises with these great big swollen stems here. Some of them are tubers, like dahlias. And these gladioli are corms. Now, corms are very much like bulbs. Now, you ready for this? Look what's underneath the corms. This was probably the old corm, and here are some new ones growing on the side of it. And those will all, when they're replanted in some fresh compost, make new plants. But I shan't plant them one at a time. I'll put loads and loads of them back into these pots, discard anything which is old and rotten and not going to grow again. What you want to do is to pull this foliage off. It comes off very, very easily. You can remove any of that old roots there. These will go on for years and years and years if I protect them over the winter. These have been stored under the bench in the greenhouse, making sure that no water came near them at all. They've just been completely dry. The more you delve, the more you find. It's very exciting that these things will go on literally for years and years, providing you give them that little bit of attention. This is one of the many jobs I enjoy doing at this time of the year, as is the annual reawakening of my dahlia tubers. Stuffed with nutrients, these tubers will eventually provide a fabulous display of rich colour. Look at this for a dahlia tuber. How about that? Surprise winner, isn't it? And to think that this was once just a little plant. But this will have to wait, because first I want to prepare my container-grown dahlias for their spring rejuvenation. These are my old dahlias, or the dahlias that were grown in these pots last year, and all produce lovely flowers. I've got to get rid of all this debris on the top, give them a really good soaking, because they've just been sitting in a sheltered place right over the winter with no water whatsoever since last autumn. So if I just with a sharp pair of secateurs, take these right down to the base. I don't want any sort of residual shoots, and you can very often just pull them out. I can snap some of these off so I can see what I'm doing. And just top the pots up with some really good compost right to the rim. Bit of grit on the top, more water, and let them get on with it. Keep them in a warm, bright place, and within weeks they'll start to shoot again. When your dahlias come through in the spring, you can always give them a bit of liquid feed. I use an organic seaweed feed. That's it. It's very satisfying doing this, but it's even more satisfying when you actually see those shoots coming up. Well, that's them done. But I've got one special dahlia that I'm going to cut back, but not for a few minutes because I've got something very special to do with it first. It's waiting for me in the potting shed, and it's going to help me enlarge my dahlia display. Well, this is one dahlia that I've been preserving all winter for this very moment. It's a dahlia that I grew last year from a basil cutting. And you can see from these seed heads how many flowers it had. Each one of them has produced seed, and I want to take some of that seed now and grow some more dahlias. But the great thing about growing from seed is you never know how your seedlings are going to turn out. These are all the old petals. Take off all the papery bits. Let's blow a little bit. They're almost like teeny tadpoles or something, but they're all dry, they're all ripe, and they're all ready to sow. So this is just from 1.5 seed pods, but it's enough seed for this little half tray here. So I want to sow it quite deliberately, trying to make sure that each seed has got a little space between it and the next one until they've made the seed leaves and then the true leaves. And at that stage, I can take them out of here and I can pop them all on. And now put some grit all over the surface of this. And then I've got a tray out here with water in the bottom. Don't water it from above because you might just wash your seeds, swish them all to one side. And you don't want to do that. You want them all to get an equal opportunity to grow into buxom big dahlias. This time of year, there's just so much propagation to be done. It's absolutely endless. But one of the things I've been meaning to do is to take some cuttings from this camellia. I've got 3 camellias right down here and they're all given to me, so don't ask its name because I don't know, but it's very pretty and I'd like more. What we're after is some nice chunky pieces, preferably with new wood. Now you can tell the new wood from the old wood because it's got this lovely sort of chestnutty colour, whereas this looks a bit drier and a bit greyer. Normally, when you're taking any kind of stem cutting, what you're aiming at is taking a cutting right under a leaf node, like that. But in this case, these are called internodal cuttings. So those are the leaf nodes where each of these leaves comes out, and there's a little bud in each of them. We want to cut in between that and directly above the next leaf up. So I'm going to do this first bit with my secateurs. I'm just going to cut under there, and I'm going to take this cut right here. You can use a sharp knife or secateurs. So that's my first cutting. It doesn't look very big, but it doesn't have to be. And just work down the side of this stem. That's exposing the cambium layer, the layer which is capable of actually making new roots. The roots will eventually emerge, and then the tiny bud that's just in there, little embryonic bud, will actually become the new shoot. And then all you do is push this down the top of the cutting is flush with the compost, and then you just work your way around the pot. You've got to be quite patient with these cuttings. They won't root as quickly as, say, a salvia cutting, which is a straightforward stem cutting, but it's well worth waiting for it. And then, inevitably, grit on the top. If you can keep it somewhere warm, but out of really bright sunlight, and make sure that you water it regularly. So give it a little spray every so often with one of those sprays you use when you're doing the ironing. If you do the ironing, I'd rather take camellia cuttings. And if you'd like to give this cutting method a whirl, here are a few things to remember. Choose stems that are yet to flower. Cut first between two leaves, and then again just above the upper leaf. Scrape the base of the stem with a sharp knife. Then push into the compost. Add grit and water well. Next, I'll be adding a very intriguing euphorbia to the garden. Come on. What a perfect spring day. Just look at this. Peerless blue sky. Come on, spring's here. A walk at this time of year can reveal such magical sights. Look at this orchid. They've come back here because this whole hedgerow now has been allowed to overgrow, and they're re-establishing themselves. Everything's just going back to the wild. It's in just such a place at the foot of a hedgerow on the edge of the woods where you come across one of our most beautiful wild plants. This is Euphorbia amygdaloides, commonly known as the wood spurge, because that's exactly the sort of conditions where it loves to grow. At the edge of the woods, in places like this, under the trees. Initially they look like bright green flowers. It's only when you look closely into these bracts and open them up that you can see these tiny little flowers just hidden inside. It's those bracts which announce its presence to insects. You must be able to see this from miles away. Well, this is the wild version, but it's got loads and loads of close cousins that are the most wonderful plants to grow in our own spring gardens. And whatever type of soil your garden has, and whatever its situation, there's a euphorbia for all of us. Here in the brick garden, I've got one of my favourite combinations, and it includes a euphorbia, and what a euphorbia it is. This is Euphorbia palustris, and it's combined here with this lovely blue camassia. They go with everything, whether it's something that's sympathetic and harmonises like this blue, or even against something brilliant red, which is just about opposite the colour of these lovely bracts. Euphorbia palustris loves damp conditions, and these clumps have been here for ages and ages, and each year they get bigger and better. This isn't the only euphorbia I have in the garden. I love the way this beautiful euphorbia kind of reiterates the sculptural quality of my obelisks there. This is a euphorbia called Stygiana. Strong, it's shrubby, it's visible all the year round. But I love the way that it's blended in now with this Carex, and with the camassias, they're all growing up through the middle of it. This spurge is honey scented, and you don't need to bend down and sniff it. because its scent is carried in the air. The whole garden is scented of honey. I don't know about spring, it makes it feel like summer. In fact, euphorbias make me feel so happy, I want more of them. So I'm planting another type that will be perfectly suited to the exposed, well-drained spot I've got in mind for it. Not all euphorbias are big, statuesque, bold plants. Some of them lie flat along the ground, and this is one of them that I've always wanted to grow. It's called Euphorbia myrsinites. It absolutely hugs the ground where it grows, up on really sun-baked, windy hillsides in the Middle East. And these leaves actually protect the cuticle of the leaf, the surface of the leaf, from the hot, blazing sun. If you look down one of these shoots, you can see this perfect spiral. They go right down the stems. It's a positively geometric, mathematical kind of arrangement. And they'll gradually spread out here and there, sort of slithering over the stones. And eventually it'll make quite a big clump. It's almost sinuous, almost kind of serpentine with these lovely, long, twisting stems. If you've got a rock garden, you've got a wall, and you want a plant that's going to grow over the rocks and hang down gracefully, then you couldn't do any better than this at all. It's perfect. This looks barren, but it looks a bit too barren. I want that kind of feeling of that sun-drenched hillside, but I don't want it to look completely empty. It's been impoverished, if anything. Move some of the gravel either way, and then dig a hole. Don't bother putting any fertiliser in it, never feed it. Perhaps water occasionally for the first few weeks, but after that, leave it to its own devices, because this is where it wants to live. It really feels at home. Here's another great favourite of mine, but it's taken a tumble. In those huge gales we had, those storms, this was pulled out of the ground. And it's Euphorbia caraceus. It's a Mediterranean spurge, and it grows in just the same sort of conditions as this little Euphorbia myrsinites. Seeing it lying like this, at least it's exposed all these lovely new shoots. I don't see why I can't just propagate some from cuttings and then plant them out here and there right across this bed. You must protect your skin because all spurges contain very irritating sap. I'm armed with my plastic bag because I want to put them in there quick so they don't lose their turgidity, because they'll wilt immediately, especially in this sun. There we go. So that's what you want, nice strong shoots. And they'll take probably a month, maybe 6 weeks to root. So I'm trying to do this in a bit of shade, and I want to do it as fast as I can. I want to cut just into this slightly older wood, so I'll just take my knife straight across there and I'll remove some of these bottom leaves. So I'm exposing a nice clear piece of stem at the base of each cutting. If you pull the leaves up rather than pulling them down, the stem doesn't bleed actually. So I'm just going to dip that into some horticultural sand just to make sure it's not dripping all over the place. My favourite tool, a chopstick, and I'm just pushing it in to the base of those leaves. And if you've got any of the leaves under the surface of the soil, then there's quite a chance that they're actually going to rot. So try to let them have their own space so they're not touching one another. Now when I've completed this, I'll put some grit on the top and then I'll put them in a nice bright place, but not in really bright sunshine, nice and warm. And I'll spray them, keep on doing that. Every time I walk past them, I'll just give them a bit of extra water, because as soon as you take a cutting like this, you've deprived it of its source of water, which was the roots of the plant. Now you can propagate just about any kind of euphorbia in this way, but sometimes you don't have to, because many euphorbias will actually seed themselves, and they do it in rather a marvellous way. They make these big round seed capsules, very hard, and then on a hot day they just explode and you can actually see them flying through the air. If you want to try taking euphorbia cuttings, you must wear gloves to protect your skin from the caustic sap. Choose nice strong shoots and cut them off with a sharp knife or secateurs. Remove the leaves at the base of the cutting, push them into the compost and water frequently. Quite frankly, you can't have too many euphorbias. And the same can be said for delicious edibles. And in the spring, veg sowing never stops. Look at this. Look how everything's growing, everything's shooting up like mad. But I've still got room to sow a few more seeds. And one that I absolutely definitely want to do is beetroot. Ooh, beetroot seeds are a cluster of tiny seeds. And because they're clusters of seeds, when they germinate, I'll probably get 2 or 3 little plants in every little compartment. And all I do is push one seed in, just a centimetre, if that, below the surface of the soil. And then I'll sieve some soil over the top of them, put a bit of grit on top and water them from underneath. I'll stand them in a tray of shallow water, and then when I can see that the grit on the top has changed colour, I'll take them out. And when they're about a couple of inches tall, I'll know that the roots are firmly established in there. I can push them out, take them outside and plant them out. And a few of them are destined for my big cattle trough, where we're trying this experiment with intensive planting. Earlier on in the season, I started packing as many plants as I could into this concrete cattle trough, which I'm using as a huge veg container. But there's still some room left. So as well as my beetroot, it's time to crack on with some cabbages. So this is the patch that I've chosen to sow some cabbages, and they prefer alkaline soil. And the soil in my trough here is probably neutral to slightly acid, because it's got lots of compost, which had lots of muck and dung in it at one stage. And what I'm going to do is change that acidity slightly and make it more alkaline by adding a bit of lime. This is ordinary garden lime. You want to just gradually spread it out. No exact measurements about this at all. Just work it gradually into the surface of this soil. So I'm just going to make a little row, about 1/2 inch deep. And I'm using this stick rather than a finger, just because lime is quite caustic. So once these seedlings have developed, I won't leave them here. I'll dig them all up when they're a decent size, a few inches tall, and then I'll transplant them. And it's at that stage that you can space them out, because you should always give them plenty of room. This is a cabbage called Greyhound, very appropriately named because it's really fast, and it's a lovely sort of pointy kind of cabbage. That's it. And just tuck it up like that. So I'll water those with a really fine rose on the watering can so I don't wash the seed away. But in this trough next door, look at these marvellous plants. This is rocket, and it's related directly to cabbages, together with this Mitsuna on the end, with a Japanese kind of mustardy, hot kind of leaf, which is also in the same family. Those flowers are delightful too, and of course, they're just as edible as the leaves. A really delightful garnish to scatter over your salad. Next, I'm chucking out the rule book with my own take on a French gardening tradition. This whole shady area has just become a sea of green. It's a green paradise. So aware of all the textures of the leaves. That's what you concentrate on. But suddenly you come across this splash of blue, these brilliant bluebells. You can tell spring is really moving on. So there's not a second to waste. Last year, I created a cutting garden here beside the potting shed. But this season, I'm going to try something different. Well, this is a lovely corner of the garden. It's almost sort of secret. You've got the background of the shed here. We grew lots of sweet peas here last year. And then into this big bed with, at the bottom of it, this discovery apple tree. I want to start transforming this whole area into something that sounds rather grand. I want to make a potager, or potager. So this is a technique that was used frequently in France, usually in chateau gardens, so rather on a grand scale. Mine is definitely not going to be exactly like that, except in essence, because it's a combination of things you can eat with things that look beautiful. And this sort of method, it's a real bonus if all you've got is a small space, because you can mix your edibles up with your pretty flowers and really enjoy the whole thing. I really hope it's going to be a very exciting experiment. Pack it all in. I want to start off by planting beans all along the back here to grow right up into this shuttering. It's the stuff you use to reinforce concrete, but it's ideal for climbers. And of course, runner beans are one of the best climbers, and also one that produces absolutely masses and masses of fruit. I'm going to start off by putting them just a couple of inches below the surface. I always think about Jack and the Beanstalk. I wonder if I'm going to find a pot of gold. They should start flowering in about mid-June or so, and we should be able to start eating them the beginning of July and then right the way through the season. And pick them young, because that's when they taste at their very, very best. I sowed these a few weeks ago. I'll keep them sheltered in the greenhouse until they've grown a bit more, and then I'll plant them out all the way along here. So I'll have this combination. That means some of my beans will be ready before some of the others. Really good idea that, if you can successionally sow. The first ornamental thing I want to put in is this very, very handsome peony. How about that for foliage? And of course later it'll have these big, voluptuous flowers. When people are planting peonies, sometimes you plant them too deep, and that actually dissuades the plant from making any flowers. It's really important to have those tubers just level with the soil or just underneath it. That helps them flower. Peonies love a sunny place, but they also like rich, fertile soil too. This peony's looking on saying, "You're building me up. I hope I'm going to be able to live up to this." Of course you will. Oh, what a good guess. That's number one. Then I want to put a second and a third one over here in this front little bed, and then that'll follow on right round that corner. But once they're planted, I want to start with some more veg and something that's going to complement this no end, some chard. I think this Swiss chard is going to look lovely here. This is the rainbow chard, so they've got different coloured stems. They'll go on for a year, year and a half, occasionally 2 years, and you can keep on cropping them too. And they're so easy to start from seed. Big seeds, just like beetroot, one to a module, and away you go. No matter what the size, a potager can include a mix of whatever you fancy, and I've still got a bit of space to fill. I've been waiting for this moment, just collecting all these goodies together. I've got a positive smorgasbord of gorgeous plants, perennial wallflowers with the most beautiful scent. And this agastache's got the most lovely perfume, aromatic, and it'll have big tall spikes of purple flowers way into the summer, and insects adore it. And then all these spaces in between, if there are any spaces, I can fill up with annuals, cosmos. I've got Ami down here, Ami majus, with these big frothy white flowers. They might look little now, but it won't take them long till they grow up and fill all these spaces in between. And then I've got dill, chervil, all sorts of herbs too. And then if there are any further spaces, and I'm sure I can find a few, I've got all those dahlias to go at. So they'll really make the whole place jubilant right the way through to the autumn. When you're doing something like this, it's so easy to make it higgledy-piggledy, but I must apply the same kind of rules to what I'm putting together here as I do to the rest of the garden. I want things to go together well. So it takes quite a lot of thought, but on the other hand, it's such very, very good fun. This week's been all about making the most of the stuff that we've been growing right through the late winter and the early spring, and actually putting some of this out into the garden. But next week's going to be just as exciting, if not even more so, because we'll have progressed into spring a little further. Next time, how to tell the difference between English bluebells and their Spanish counterparts. It's very, very beautiful, but I do not want it in my garden. And if you love a crunchy salad as much as I do, there's still time to sow some juicy cucumbers. Sow them on their side, because if you sow them flat on the surface of the compost, then they're inclined to rot. See you then.